Welcome to On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast. I'm Jeff Probst, the host and showrunner of Survivor. Each week, I am joined by Jay Wolf, Survivor fan and the executive producer of this podcast. Hello, Jay.
What's going on, Jeff?
We're also joined by former Survivor great, three-time player, Jeremy Collins. Hello, Jeremy.
What's up, fellas?
So each week, we dissect the biggest moments of the most recent episode of Survivor, and we bring you insights from three different points of view. That's what makes this podcast unique. You have the fan in Jay, the player in Jeremy, the producer in me. Let's get into it. The big moments from episode 5 of Survivor 49. Jay, where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start with a theme of this episode, or at least one that I picked up on, and that's language. We heard a lot of analogies in this episode. Sharks and seals, throwing out names like permission slips, eating an elephant one bite at a time.
Right.
We're going to play some of these clips later, but Jeff, I want to start with this question. Is the ability to make a great analogy something you're looking for in a Survivor player?
This is how I would answer that question. Your ability to tell a story in a way that is unique to you is essential in a Survivor player. So analogies are definitely a great indicator of a player's ability to use words to convey the story that they see happening through their own point of view. I mean, you can think back, we've had so many. Christian Hubicki had a great one about poached eggs. Parvati, of course, the Black Widow Brigade. Juwan this season with horror movies. And going all the way back to the first season, Sue Hawk with the rats and snakes speech. Those are all great, colorful analogies because they tell you what is happening, but they do it through the point of view of the player who's telling it. So let me be clear. You don't have to make analogies to get on Survivor. You just have to be able to use the words that work for you to paint a clear picture of what is happening.
All right, well, let's go to the next moment. And that's an idea that occurs to Shannon first thing in the morning.
And so I had an idea. We go into a merge, right? 2 yellow, 2 red, 2 blue. Super unexpected.
What I came up with was this idea of 2 Uli, 2 Hina, and 2 Kelly. A core 6 to work together to keep each other's names out of the rotation.
I'm very serious when I say you're something I want to work with. You feel it.
Naturally, Steven likes this idea because it's a great idea.
And I could see us just taking out the big threats.
Shannon rolls over and starts spitting game at me. And I'm like, dude, I know we don't have coffee, but could I get some coffee before we start doing this?
What are you talking about?
Of course I'm gonna say yes. You don't say no to an alliance, but it just was so early and she's playing so hard. Right now, I'm excited that the game is starting, but I just wasn't expecting it to slap me in the face as soon as I woke up.
The sun isn't even out yet, and Shannon's pitching endgames to Steven here. Steven understandably wants a cup of coffee. They don't have coffee, by the way. Jeremy, how do you talk this kind of strategy without attracting a target?
So it's a delicate dance that you want to do out there. So Shannon is doing it first thing in the morning. I love the gameplay, the ferocity trying to get out there and play. Tony was a monster at that. Tony would get up
Right.
first thing in the morning before everybody, and he's out there working, trying to suss out who has idols, trying to get his alliance going. Sage is kind of slow playing it, something like I would do. I would want to wait a little bit.
Well, there's a more broad question going on here, which is about playing hard. Steven says she wakes up first thing in the morning and she's playing so hard. Can we just settle this, please? Isn't everyone playing hard?
I don't think it's a question of whether everybody's playing hard in the new era. I think it's a question of the style of gameplay. So in the seasons prior to 41, it was a different game. 39 days alone makes it a very different game. Starting with Tribes of 10 makes it a very different game. Every single element contributes to shaping the game and thus the gameplay. So I can't say this enough. When we birthed Survivor 41, we birthed a new game. Yes, it is still fundamentally the same format, but we changed a lot of dynamics and we forced a different pace. So you are playing hard out of the gate in the new era because you have to. It's a desperate situation. You start on a tribe of 6, you're almost dead the minute the game starts.
Yeah.
So To Jeremy's point about you got to be able to read the moment, Shannon may be feeling that desperation and think, I got to be the early bird and get up there quickly. It may work, it may not. But if you did that same pace in Jeremy's first season, then you might have gotten voted out because you overplayed. So let's just remember, seasons before 41 did not have things like a beware advantage or a journey or the shot in the dark. So all of that changes the nature of the game, and that's what's going to be interesting about 50 is somebody like Jeremy or Colby who have played many times, but they played a slower pace, not an easier or more difficult game, a different pace because of the game design. How's that going to work? You could easily see a world in which new era players say to somebody like Colby or Jenna or Stephanie, hey, let's go, get up earlier, no coffee. Or what happens if the older era players say, hey, why don't we slow down for a minute? I'm going to go make us some coffee, tend to the fire. That's one of the elements that's going to be fun about 50.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with all that. I think regarding me, Jeff, you have to play differently. For me, it's a more of aggressive game, and I would change my style up a little bit and play more aggressive.
If only Jeremy hadn't just played in Survivor 40, the chances of him being on 50 are very high, but we made a decision not to bring any of the winners from Winners at War because we had just seen them and it was a big season. And I know a lot of people are going to miss players like Jeremy, but that was the reason why. It's that simple.
Okay, I want to keep this act about Shannon and Sage because I just loved watching the both of them. What a star in Sage. Just keeps looking at the camera in ways that are making me giggle.
I see Shannon pulling an old Parvati with Alex. She's kissing his hand. She's holding his hand. I'm like, Alex, you can't be buying this man, but he is.
No, I didn't.
It could just be her being genuine. But for me, my gut says like she's definitely that shark that like starts off as like maybe a cute seal. And then the seal rips its mask off and it's a giant shark that's like going to eat your head. Like it's not a seal. Everybody else sees a seal and I'm trying to be like, guys, it's a freaking shark. Do you see the fin on the back? Like, it's so obvious, but try and play the long game here.
Pretty good analogy.
Analogy, so I was just going to say.
Another one.
Okay, first question here. Jeremy, you played with Parvati. Are you seeing echoes?
Listen, that's some big shoes. Let's not crown her yet. Like, Shannon's doing a good job, but Parv is Parv. You know what I mean? She won once. She almost won a second time.
Yeah.
Like, let's not do too much. Let Shannon cook first, and then we'll talk about some comparisons with her and Parv.
Jeremy, I'm going to put you on the spot. And I mean this as a legit question. In the Survivor world, does Parvati winning Survivor Australia count in the same way that winning this Survivor does? Is she now a 2-time Survivor winner?
So listen, I don't think so. In my Survivor world, I say she has 1.5 wins. It's a good win. Australia Survivor is a good win, but it's not the same as Survivor US. It's not the same.
All right. Back to you, Jay.
Thanks. That was an interesting new morsel that I got here. Okay, I want to take a look at this scene sequence that we just listened to from the producer's perspective for a second. Throughout the sequence, as I mentioned, there are lots of shots of Sage, almost like she's on The Office, making Jim Halpert looks at camera. And I'm just curious, Jeff, how the producer and camera teams are coordinating here, because clearly the producers are probably picking up, okay, Sage is maybe not so in on Shannon. Let's see if we can get as many shots of that as possible.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite that specific. Yes, of course, we are always talking all the time about the storylines with one tribe on one beach and the storylines with another tribe on another beach. And then that gets more interesting if you have a tribe switch or when you merge and everybody's together and it gets more complex. But it's never so specific that you would say, we need to make sure we get a shot of Shannon doing this thing. And the reason is we don't need to, because our camera operators are getting those shots in real time. That is the magic of our reality crews. They can sense what is unfolding. They can anticipate that Sage might have a visual reaction to something Shannon is saying because they are great students of human nature. So you have to think of them not as camera operators. They're storytellers who use the camera as their way to tell the story. But they are storytellers in the same way that the producers are storytellers with interviews and words. Our editors are storytellers in how they cut the pieces together. Our composers are storytellers. Each one brings their own specific discipline into it. And when you put them all together, you have a show.
Did you see this side of Shannon while you were casting her?
100%. In fact, I remember when we did our in-person interviews in Los Angeles. So we're all in a hotel room, and one by one, these people come in, and we've spent a lot of time with them, but in most cases, we've not met them in person unless we met them for an earlier season. So it's a big deal. She walked in barefoot with a sort of, I just got back from Burning Man vibe. And we have a chair sitting there, and she didn't want the chair, which is fine. You can use the chair. You don't have to use the chair, whatever you want. She just had a lot of energy, but she owned the room. And her personality was in full blossom, and it was infectious, and she was engaging, and she was fun, and she was uplifting, and she was carefree. And the key to this for future players is this is true to who Shannon is. This wasn't a performance. Sage was very different when she came in the room for casting. One of the biggest obstacles, Jay, that people face when they're applying to be on Survivor is knowing who they are and then having the ability to be who they are. It sounds simple. It's not. And our casting process is designed to determine your level of authenticity. This is so important that I'll give you one of my own analogies. You know how I talk about watching a lot of police interrogation videos. I love them.
Sure.
So our casting process is analogous to a police interrogation in this way. By the time we have put you through all the layers and testing and interviews, we will know who you are. In the same way the detective knows if you did the crime. The difference with us is we don't care if you did the crime. We just want the truth. Who are you? All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Nate realizes he's going to fail in his journey against MC, so he comes up with a very clever plan. We'll talk about his strategy. Be right back. Welcome back to On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast. Jay, next moment.
Let's go on the journey. Nate volunteers himself, though he doesn't really want to go because he wants to keep Jason from going in order to stop him from getting an advantage. Then he gets there and he sees, 150 sandbags that he's got to lift across the beach with MC. Seems fun. Then they find a twist.
The note says that there is an advantage hidden in the jungle, and if one person finds that advantage, the other person must finish the rest of the sandbags or lose their votes. Immediately I realize if it's a race to find something in those woods, I am going to lose. MC is just fitter than me, so I need to come up with a rationale that she will buy that makes sure that at the least, I keep my vote. Can I make a deal? Let's finish most of them and leave one bag.
You still have to finish the sandbag no matter what.
Exactly, so then we have a little time to look. So I pitched to MC, we finished almost all of this challenge, and whatever time left, we can go look for the advantage. That way, we're both guaranteed to have our vote.
Sounds good. All right, cool.
All right, deal.
I love that.
She bought it, and I was relieved.
We would just get more tired scrambling.
Exactly. So we continue to grind.
Wow. You know what I loved hearing about that? And I didn't really catch the first time. When you really think about what Nate's life is about, he's a movie producer on a very big scale.
Right.
That in the moment ability to assess a very serious, urgent problem and solve it without anybody knowing there was a problem. In fact, he just really assessed it and said, here's our best move.
Yeah.
It reminded me of what he probably has had to do at times where you might have the director and you've got the star. And the two worlds are about to collide in a way you don't want. And Nate has got to intervene so that the director is happy and the star is happy. That's what he just did there. He convinced MC this is the only move without it even feeling like it was a move.
Totally.
Yeah, it's so smart. So smart. And self-aware, you know what I mean? Like to know your limitations.
Right.
And like your weaknesses and stuff. And then in real time to just say, you know what? I can flip it and have MC think, oh, this is good for my game as well. And it's genius. It's a beautiful gameplay.
Jeremy, you just said a big thing it's hard to do is you've got to be able to know yourself so well that you don't have time to analyze. You got to make the decision right now. And then what Nate did is you have to execute it seamlessly, because if every other player is as smart as you, then they're looking for any tell you got.
Yes.
You know what else I really enjoyed about this is the pride I had in our team because we worked very hard on this journey game. Very hard. It went through a lot of iterations, including the dilemma that they're going to encounter and how do we write it and where the note should be placed. How many sandbags should they already have to move before they find it? What are the odds that one person will find it without the other? Should we give them a possibility to not tell the other person? Should we force them to tell the other person?
Yeah.
These are all the things we spend all day just role playing until you find where you think, okay, this seems to be the best layering where you're going to get the best dilemma that's going to force the most complicated decision. And that's what happened. And you saw great character being revealed as a result of this twist.
Okay, I want to move on to the next moment, and I would like to just briefly talk about Juwan, who cannot figure out whose water bottle is whose or which bag to be using while he's going to put wood into it. It's starting to get on Savannah's nerves. So start us off here, Jeremy. What are the unwritten rules with respect to other people's stuff on Survivor?
So, I mean, when you're out there, you're going through a lot. You're hungry and tired and grouchy and irritated and you don't know who to trust and everything. So, like, all you have is what's on your back and your bag and your water bottle. So you don't want anyone to touch your stuff. That's all it is. So it's not even like an unwritten rule. It's just like common sense, like don't touch my stuff, all right? You know what I mean? That's all it is. And even second chance, we got coconuts and we would put our initials on the coconut. People would get voted out and you still wouldn't use that coconut because that's not yours. That's somebody else's. You know what I mean?
Wow. Jeff, what are the items that Castaway gets at the start of the season, just so that we're clear?
Yeah, typically you get your personal bag, you get your shot in the dark, you get a water bottle, and you get a pair of game shoes. I mean, that's really about it. So yes, every single item is important, but I don't think it has to do with that. I think it's what Jeremy said. I think it's just the way you feel about your stuff. And the thing for me about Juwan is I never got the sense he was doing that intentionally. He certainly never said it in the interview. And I like Juwan, but if Juwan picked up my bag once, I'd say, it's a mistake. I get it. Yes. The second time, I would say,
it's a problem.
Yeah, okay, Juwan, here's my problem with our alliance. If you can't remember whose bag is whose, what other mistake are you going to make? And at some point, what I'm thinking is, how am I and when am I going to use this against you?
Yeah. Yes.
Savannah seems to be doing a great job of keeping it locked up, despite the fact that it is truly on her nerves.
Yeah.
So shout out to her. All right, I want to go to the challenge. Or actually, I want to start moments before the challenge. And we're talking still about language.
Wow, you are upping it.
We heard earlier in this episode that the Hina was a taunt. I think they said, we didn't start the war, Hina did. That has created some rifts. And now we have this old Uli versus old Hina showdown, and it's gonna come to that at Tribal Council later. Why is something like a simple chant like this so enraging?
Yeah, that's funny. It wasn't even a taunt. Like, they were just pumping themselves up. But like I said, you're out there and you're grouchy and irritated, and any little thing will set you off, and that set them off. When I played, if you ate the scraps of the rice that was left over, that irritated me. And I'm like, you need to go because no one told you to eat that rice. You know what I mean? It was little crumbs and it'd still piss you off. It's anything when you're out there.
Remind me not to share plates with Jeremy next time we go to dinner. Jeff, you notice the kindling here. Can you feel this rivalry brewing, or do you think it also had to do with the fact that, like, the heat is just so hot out there this season that anything is going to tick anybody off?
Well, I think it's all the elements, including what Jeremy said, which is we are a community, not a community I built by design. It's a community I was put into. And so the behavior is going to be influenced by all the members of the community. Personally, I like these moments because it tells me the players are in, and it tells me they're playing hard. Because yes, Jeremy's referred to this many times. The people wearing another color buff, they are your rivals. And you want them out of the game because if they win and send you to tribal, then you could be the one out of the game. So there is nothing more important in that moment than beating the other tribe or tribes. So any edge is an advantage. And if I think I can get you off your game by having a great tribal chant that we disguised as pumping ourselves up, then let's do it. Maybe our version is, hey, let's all come in stoic. All right, let's just be low key. Whatever it is, the thing about Survivor is it's not a game about points. It's a social game, and it's very complex because of that. So what do you have to do to not get voted out, get the person out that you want out, and then how do you parlay that all the way to the final three? Then how do you get the same people you voted out to come back and vote for you to win? So when you have a confident taunt, it doesn't matter the intention behind it. What matters is if you get to the end, you got to be able to list that on your resume as part of your strategy and part of what made your game so good. And if you can pull that off and prove there was a method to my madness, then it could be worth $1 million.
Ah.
There's another thing I want to talk about in the challenge here, Jeff. I mean, it was an amazing challenge, honestly, seeing the feet move through the water as they lift that giant box. I was ready to run through a wall myself. I said at the top of the episode, we're talking about playing hard. You could feel playing hard in this challenge.
Well, Jay, you're picking up on something really subtle in this episode, in most episodes of Survivor, and that's there's usually a theme. It doesn't have to be on the nose. You don't have to be pounded over the head with it, but it's there. Jim Ciccarello cut this challenge. He's an incredible editor. He also understood that, and he approached this challenge that same way. I thought it was fantastic. One moment in particular really stood out to me, and that is we're in the middle of the challenge, and one tribe is very far ahead, and one tribe is very far behind. Ciccarello changes the tempo mid-challenge, really risky. You got a lot of adrenaline, a lot of momentum. And instead, he cuts to a series of high speed, which means slow motion, ECUs, extreme close-ups. So he cuts from the middle of this, go. And he slows everything down. And you see faces, and you see energy, and you see effort. And you realize emotionally what is happening.
Yeah.
What's happening is this momentum may be about to change. And this tribe may actually come back. And then he continued this epic cut all the way to the end, where at the end of the challenge, you see this exhaustion and this emotion. He was totally in charge from top to bottom of what he wanted you to feel. And I can tell you, because I was there, in the hands of another editor or with another point of view, the end of that challenge where you had the emotion and all of the exhaustion, that could have just felt like, I get it. But instead, because of the journey Ciccarello took you on, you felt it.
Jeff, I felt it when Jawan was screaming and it slowed down. I said, this is beautiful. Like you can feel the passion and the drive, and like it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
All right, let's take one more quick break. When we come back, the return of the chickens. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On Fire. All right, Jay, where you want to go?
Okay, I want to go to the reward from tonight's challenge. The chickens are back. It's a very unique Survivor test. And ultimately, they decide to eat the chickens, which requires killing them. We heard this from Alex.
How are you doing?
It's like shocking, because it's like, this is a life, but we eat chicken every day. Like, I'm used to living a very comfortable life. I live in my high-rise apartment building and order DoorDash and just don't think twice. I mean, that's probably the hardest thing that I will ever have to do in my life, have ever done in my life.
The hardest thing he's ever done in his life.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the chickens before on this podcast once, since we've seen them once before in the new era, but we haven't talked about what it takes to kill them in order to eat them. So how do you deal with something delicate like that?
Well, coming on the heels of that challenge edit that we just talked about, it's the same approach. It's just a different point of view, because you're right. This is a very delicate scene, and it's something we try to treat as respectfully as we can. I mean, to say it again, Alex just said, most difficult thing I may ever do in my life. I'll admit it's a sensitive topic for me, and I'm a meat eater. But I love all beings, so I struggle with my own hypocrisy. But Survivor is about this shared adventure, this life experience where you take strangers and you force them to create a community and they have to rely on each other in order to survive. And sometimes that means having to do things you don't really want to do.
Yeah.
So when I see them deciding to kill a chicken, I have to remind myself, they're starving. Jeremy knows what it's like. For some of them, it's been many, many, many days with no food. So suddenly killing a chicken, actually, I guess I can do it, even though I don't want to. And that's the dilemma. And it gets back to the character that it reveals. But we're always respectful. We're never gratuitous. I don't think so. In fact, I just ran into some people from PETA who stopped me at an event. And I thought they were going to say, why are you still killing chickens? And instead they said, we understand that's part of the show, but we appreciate the way you handle it. And I was happy to hear that, because we don't want to shy away. It's not our job to be the moral compass of human behavior. Our job is to create situations that force dilemmas and force decisions, and those decisions reveal behavior. So ultimately, it is up to the player.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt Alex in this scene. Like, I'm a city kid, you know? Like, I'll go to the store and get a chicken. You know what I mean? I've never hunted. I've never fished. I don't do any of that stuff. And when we played Second Chance, I actually killed a chicken with, rest his soul, Keith Nail. And it is a different feeling, man. Like, and you don't know what you're going to feel until you actually go through it. It's wild, man. And then to pluck it and to cook it, it's a lot, man. So I feel their pain and their what they're going through. I could feel it.
And Jay, this is what I mean when I say the game is the lure, the experience is the prize. That experience that Alex and Steven just went through will bond them. It will change them in some way. And when they return home, the reason they are not the same person, this is a part of that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I had just finished ordering DoorDash while I sat down to watch Survivor tonight. And here we go, you know? So it struck me as well. All right, let's go to the last one. I want to go to Tribal Council, and I want to stay on our theme.
Survivor is not designed to break you, but it's designed to get you at that point where Jawad is now questioning, am I even a good communicator? I don't know anymore.
You know, Jeff, I'm not this great communicator myself, but you kind of play compare and contrast sometimes. And it's not only in the game, it's personally, it's like, wow, like this person's making that person laugh a lot. Like, am I not funny? Like, wow, this person is providing for people. Am I not doing that? So Survivor does this weird thing to your brain where it's like, I might not be playing the best game, but like, I might not be the best person.
Man, Rizzo, you're really making us go through it. I might not be the best person. I mean, it's building to this question like, let me answer, who am I? Jeremy, do you find that Survivor actually helped you answer that question?
Yeah, it does. So what Survivor does is it breaks you down to your core, physically, mentally, emotionally. It strips you of everything, and you kind of like figure out who you are. For me, I love my family. When I came home, the love I had, the burning love I had was so much more. I miss them so much. You know, my kids are knuckleheads. My boys are knuckleheads. I had so much patience when I came home because you're like, oh, I miss that. Every person in this episode at one point said how grueling it was. You know, say how hard it was, how it's breaking them down. You're never going to ever hear somebody come on Survivor and say, oh, that was easier than I thought. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen. This thing is rough.
Well, Jay, I think you're hitting on the central premise of Survivor. It's one simple thing. Survivor asks one question. Who are you when you're stripped of everything? And if you don't already know, you will definitely find out if you sign up to play Survivor, because you are stripped of everything. Yeah, you got a water bottle and you got a personal bag, whatever. You're stripped of everything. And it makes you figure out who you are. The game is the lure. The experience is the prize.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately in this episode, the old Uli versus the old Hina, and the chanting of Hina, Hina, Hina stays alive. Jason gives it his best shot, but the blood feud is too deep. He gets sent home. Jeff, your thoughts on Jason as he heads off the island?
Yeah, my notes were, the first thing I wrote was instantly intrigued. He's so forthcoming. And then a lot of notes about his vulnerability, because in casting players that end up on the show, share who they really are with us. And you get to see where they're vulnerable. Like Rizzo saying, am I a good communicator leads to, am I enough? I mean, those are the things that come up. I wondered if the vulnerability was real. And then when I met him in person, I knew it was. And I realized Jason's a slow burn. He's very thoughtful. He's very interesting in how he tells a story. And you saw that. He would think for a moment. I remember the first thing he says in the very first episode is, Jeff, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk behind the wall and tell you I'm an alternate.
Yeah.
And the minute he did that, we understood a little about Jason. He's asking permission to tell his story, and then he's going to tell you something he's not sure he's supposed to tell you. That's vulnerability. And the last thing I wrote in capital letters was, I want him in interview, !
Wow.
I'm so happy he ended up on the show. It was crazy how he got there, but he was wonderful to watch.
Yeah, he was.
Totally agreed. All right, let's get to some fan questions. You know what to do. Email us survivorshoutout@cbs.com. I read the questions, might even read yours here on the show, like this one from Tia, who says, hello, absolutely love the podcast. I've been listening since the beginning, and it makes doing chores so much better. I have a question. Are castmates allowed to wear bug spray or sunscreen? I feel like we never really see anyone with significant burns.
Yes, they get sunscreen, and people do get sunburns, especially the first few days. I've seen a few pretty decent ones, and if they're bad, that can linger and it can become a pain because a lot of times the top of the shoulder gets burned and then suddenly you're carrying something or somebody's standing on your shoulders to get them up a big wall. And all of a sudden, that's a problem. They do get bug spray as well, which Jeremy can talk to because it's pretty simple out there. The bugs either like you, in which case this is going to be a long 26 days, or they don't like you, in which case it's not really a bother. I'm very lucky that they don't like me. Jeremy, what was it like for you?
Yeah, so it was a mixture of bug spray and sunscreen in one. And the bugs didn't like me. So I was good, but I needed the sunscreen, so I put that on. But certain bugs loved the sunscreen. In Cambodia, it was the weirdest thing. So you wouldn't get bit by mosquitoes, but there was these little sand fleas that would bite me because I had the sunscreen on. So
it is tough out there, and it's something we probably don't talk about enough. But Jay, the fire is a big part of it. If you have a good fire, that helps a lot. But only so many people can be around the fire. And then you see some people sitting in the sand near the water, which I can't imagine because there's so many little sand fleas out there, but it just doesn't bother them.
Yeah. I remember Kelly Wentworth. I looked at her back and it looked like a slice of pizza. It looked awful. I felt so bad for her.
Oy. All right. Question number 2 comes from Jeremy. I'm presuming it's not Collins. They write, I want to ask Jeff, do you take into account someone's name when casting for Survivor? For example, do you try not to duplicate a certain name so it's not Mike M or Mike P? Or do you even avoid casting certain people with legendary names like Sandra, Tony, Rob? He didn't say Jeremy, but I'll insert Jeremy.
Yes. This is me asking. That's why. This is me asking.
There are 2 Sophies this season. How do you not confuse them?
Yeah, it is something that does come up. And you're right. It's a consideration. But above the consideration of duplicate names is how good is the player? Because our number one thing in casting is great players. So we knew early on we wanted both Sophies this season, and we weren't going to wait on either one of them. We'd already waited on one Sophie already. We weren't going to do that again. So then you have to just weigh the pros and cons, and you have to accept the fact that what if they end up on the same tribe because of a switch, or what if they both make it to the merge, or what if they both end up in a tight alliance and you got Sophie 1 and Sophie 2? What if they both end up in the final 3?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you just have to find a way, or they find a way to differentiate themselves. Ultimately, it is a very good problem to have.
Yeah.
All right, last question comes from Marion. They write, I love the podcast. I'm excited about season 49. The question's for Jeff. How much of your dialogue is scripted in advance, memorized, practiced, and then delivered? When you're speaking to tribes and sharing such insightful comments, is it all spontaneously coming from your heart? Or do you review footage prior to seeing the tribes and loosely prepare some things to say?
Such a good question.
Yeah, I feel like Jay might have put this question in because Jay knows this is a sore spot for me. But I'm going to take this question not as a joke. I'm going to believe that Marion wrote it, and I'm going to give you my real answer. No, nothing is scripted at all. I certainly know how I'm going to describe the challenge that we're running. And so that's something I would work on to have it really tight and just down to a few sentences. But everything on Survivor's in the moment. So when I'm talking to the tribes before the challenge, Jeremy knows we have no idea what we're going to talk about. We just start talking. I just check in. Or maybe I'm talking to you during a challenge, or maybe we're talking after the challenge. All of that is kind of like this unscripted improv between all of us. And it's the same at Tribal Council. There is no script. And I don't look at footage. There's no time to do that. So if you were hosting a show like Survivor, just like if you were playing Survivor, I have to trust my gut and trust my ability to read a moment, to read a situation, and how to understand talking to different people so that you can ask a question in the way you want to get the answer that you're looking for. Those are just the skills of the job. And I got to say, I love that I don't have anybody in my ear telling me what to say. And I don't have any writers giving me the words I have to say. I'm my own writer. Most of the time that's happening in real time, which means I got to live with it and I got to own it. And that's why it's in the show. And you can look at many episodes and say, that was a terrible sentence, or what a weird question, or I bet he regrets that. Yes, yes, and yes. Wow. You're right. Okay, that's it for this week's episode of On Fire. If you enjoy the podcast, leave us a review and rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And you could do us a big solid. Leave us a review like this one from Buffalo Jill. She said, I've watched every season of the show, yet I held off on this podcast.
What?
Well, I'm in. Jeff is so genuine, and I love the way he speaks so enthusiastically about the game we love. A must listen. The Buffalo Jill must have forgot me and you, Jay. Like, what was she doing?
That's all right. That's all right. I'm good.
Well, welcome to the tribe, Buffalo Jill. All right, there's a brand new episode of Survivor every Wednesday at 8, 7 Central on CBS and Paramount Plus. And immediately following the episode, as Buffalo Jill now knows, there's a new episode of this podcast, On Fire. See you then. Follow and listen to On Fire on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.